Hey everybody, and welcome back to Art a la Carte. I don't remember if I showed this sketchbook that I got a while ago. I have been saving it. This is Bailey J's embroidered sketchbook, which is so beautiful. She has a couple of them out there, and I have yet to put anything in it, and I've been trying to figure out what I want to do for this sketchbook. There are a few different ways that people fill up sketchbooks. Okay, so there is the sketchbook that is just kind of like your art journal, where you just toss in whatever you're learning. It's not meant to be a pretty picture. It's not meant to be finished. It's just whatever you're working in. It's a conglomeration. And I love those kind of sketchbooks. Those really are fun. Then there are the finished piece sketchbooks, which artists try to make every single page look like an art experience. It's beautiful, they're fun to look at, and they take a lot of time. I wanted to do something really nice with this sketchbook because one, it's a really beautiful sketchbook, and two, the paper is really nice and thick, so it can handle a lot of work. And I think I'm going to do a mixture of the two. So I'm going to pick a topic for each page. On one page, I'm going to do kind of some sketches and working that up, and on the other page or the following page, depending how I feel, I will try to do a finished piece. So I'm going to do a chipmunk is my first thing. And I don't know why. I like to skip the first page. I also obviously did some sort of swatch right there. And so this is going to be my page. So I'm going to do my sketching here, and then I'm going to hopefully do a nice colored, either Copic color pencil. I think this can even do watercolor somewhat. It's not watercolor paper, but it's pretty thick. But let's do some sketches first. So I like to use these Cool Erase color pencils. They just add a little bit of color. Because they're not graphite, they tend not to smudge as bad, and if you draw lightly enough, you can erase them. So I like that, and I don't like this light. Hang on, let me fix my lighting. So much better. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at some reference photos, because I don't know about you, but I have not drawn chipmunks enough to know exactly what they look like in my brain cells. So if you don't have a real life chipmunk to draw, reference photos. So I'm just going to Google chipmunks. I'm going to start with my red, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my chipmunk and I'm going to break it down into some shapes. So my overall shape is this nice big circle. You're going to notice that my circle shape is not super fancy. It's not precise. It's a whole bunch of little ones. I'm just lightly sketching this in. I'll go in and darken in things in a little bit. And then over here, I'm going to draw the head. And the head is not quite as big as the body because he's kind of hunched over. He's maybe eating some seeds or something. So there is the head. So 2 circles. Yeah, there we go. Or like a circle like kind of, oh goodness. See, that's why we have sketchbooks. Because I just made him a chipmunk corn. Back to what I was saying. Let's kind of flesh out his head, which is, I'm going to make it almost like a teardrop coming up this way. So if this was the point of my teardrop, I'm not going to have it super pointy, but it's going to go up this way. And this is going to be kind of where his mouth is. I'm just going to block in where his eye is going to be right there. And then he has these really cute ears, which are just little loopies. So I'm going to loopy this out, and it kind of comes down. And then there's one on the other side of his head over here. So I don't have to loopy that all the way down because I can't quite see it. So just this one. All right, and then his little front face right there coming down. And then his back of his head kind of comes back towards his body that's hunched over, and it's just going to come straight down like this. And there's his body. So now we have to get his little legs in there. So his bottom feet are really easy. They just kind of come right out here. There's 1, 2, I think they have like 4 little toes right there. And then for his front paws, I'm going to start right kind of in the middle here and bring his little, there's his little arm, kind of comes up right there. And he's maybe holding something. We'll give him a little seed or something to hold, and we'll just give him some little fingers. And then they have these nice little tails. So depending on your breed of chipmunk, they'll have really skinny tails, and some of them have a little bit more bushy tail. Not as bushy as like a squirrel, but has a little bit of a tail. All right, so let's work on that eye. I'm going to give him a little tear duct over here. I'm going to keep that nice eye circle eye shape, and then the corner of his eye. And then give him a little nostril right there. Shade in his eye. We'll add a little bit more detail to that later. But then he's got the fur pattern. So he's got a little white that comes around his eye and back, and then it goes under his eye and back, and then he's got kind of some dark that goes in there. And then his little cheeks into his chest is white. So this is white, and this is kind of a cream, and this is dark, and then up top here is all dark, and then he's got these great stripes. So there's actually a couple different colors. So there's a large brown stripe down his back, but then his back is split into two other kind of stripes that has an outline of black and an inside of kind of white cream, same color as right in here. I really want to make sure I got that shoulder up there. Can't really see it too much because he's just so fuzzy that it kind of just blends in. There we go. So that's our initial sketch of our squirrel, or chipmunk, I guess it is. The reason why I would recommend, if you're going to draw something, especially if you haven't drawn a lot of it before, to do a couple sketches up first before you do that really nice picture that you're gonna want to put hours and hours into, is to get to know your picture, get to know your piece, and learn. So you're really just making all the studies. You're studying how the pattern of the fur looks, what the proportion of the head to the rest of the body is. This is where you make those discoveries, and you'll find you'll make less mistakes, I guess, learning curves, happy accidents, however you want to call it, in your final piece. And yeah, you might have to draw this a couple of times as you practice it, but I find I learned so much by doing these little studies of our little chipmunk friends, or anything. Even if it's something I know how to draw really well, like horses or whales, people, if I just spend a few minutes warming up, doing a quick little sketch, I tend to have a better product at the end. Now, because I have this backside paper here, if I want to, I can do like a little sketch thumbnail of kind of what everything's going to look like. That way it can kind of be on this side with my finished piece over here. A thumbnail is just really, really quick. That's the plan. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I have my sketch done. It's pretty light. And I was kind of really base with my ferns. I just wanted to get the shape in there because I'm going to go in with more detail. And the less work I can do that has to be erased, the longer that it'll save my paper. So I'm going to just kind of indicate where those are. I'll clean up my little chippy monk. I also added morning glories and brought them down here to kind of frame the bottom part out as well. It might be a bit too busy, but we will see as we go. But I like the setup so far of my chipmunk. And now I have to decide, do I want this outlined or do I want it not outlined? So the rule of thumb is when you outline something, it really cartoonifies it or illustrates it. If you want a more realistic piece of artwork, then you're not going to rely on outline. You're going to rely on your contrast between colors. I kind of think I want to lay my color in first, and then if I want to, I can always go on top of that and outline it later. You know, if you're going to do swatches, mark them if you can, because if when you come back on your sketchbook, you're like, ooh, I like that color combination, what is it? And then you have to go swatching everything trying to find it. But if you mark it in your sketchbook, then you have it. So yay. So I think I want to start actually with, like a yellow orangey base. Let's try that. So I'm going to lay this in under his muzzle and around his eyes. And it looks gray right now. Once it dries, it won't be gray. So let's go ahead and put in my, this is really way too orangey, but I just want to throw this in as an undertone. want to protect that white stripe, so I'm going to work around that. Alright, and then I'm going to go back in with my macadamia nut, and I'm going to just blend some of these colors out a little bit so it's not so harsh. This technique is what makes alcohol-based markers, specifically Copic markers, why they work so well, better than, like, you know, just a regular water-based marker like Crayola, is the blendability. So if you get your buy Copic markers and you use them only just like a regular color, just like that color, it's like buying a race car to drive to work. I mean, you can, sure, but it's just not making the most of what that product can do. So learning how these blend and how to blend them is really important. So I'm coming in now with a color that I didn't even swatch, E35, to add, just toning it down just a little bit because it was getting it was a bit yellow. And you can layer in so many colors on top of each other and blend them in and kind of get your own mix going on there, which is kind of fun. Y32 cashmere, and I'm just going to kind of go in here and blend that darker brown in with that yellow brown. And I want to blend this out because that's a pretty harsh line in there. So I'm just kind of doing some circle motions in here to kind of reactivate that ink and kind of get it blending, and you'll see it kind of gets a little fuzzy. What it's doing is it's pushing it through the paper, and it just barely soaking into this, but so that's how it works to blend. That's why you want a really nice juicy marker, because it can really take those colors and push them around a little bit. It's really hard at this point. I always want to jump in with my darkest colors right away, and you want to build up slowly to that, because you can always go darker, but and you can pull out some of the colors with this, but it's easier to go slowly up than it is to have to try to diffuse your colors and stuff. You also see I'm adding, you know, texture, so I'm not just laying in straight things. I might go in with some dots, and as they blend out, it just kind of gives a little bit more fur texture to things, which is nice. Everything's a little bit darker when you apply it, and then as the marker dries, you'll notice it lightens a little bit. So if something comes on super dark and you're kind of scared, give it a second to kind of set a little bit, and you'll see it might change a little bit. If something gets a little too blotchy, I'll go back in with a lighter tone and blend it out, diffuse it a little bit. But here I'm just laying in my color. I'm going to start making sure that the bottom part of my chipmunk is a little darker. Again, the foundation for this one is learning your values. If you ever see people drawing and shading the circle, that's what they're learning when they're doing that, is they're learning how shade and shadow works. You start with your basic egg and shadow that, and then you move on to things with a little bit more texture. But you're doing it with pencil, which is a little bit easier, so that when you decide to come back and do that with something like a marker, which is, you know, you're having to think about, you know, several different things while you're using a marker, and there's no erase with a marker as much as there is with a pencil. Yeah, again, you're ready for that. So don't skip the boring practice stuff. Learning perspective, drawing that vanishing point, or learning to draw with shapes, things like that. All super, super important. So he is looking really good. I'll probably go in with some more blacks. I still have to do his eye. But before I do that, I'm going to put in a light blue for the background. Super dark, warm gray, I think. I'm not going to go straight with black. I'm going to put in the eye of my chipmunk, and I want to draw around my shine. Draw your shine circles. Here's a pro tip. Draw your shine circles larger than you think you want them when you're filling in the color, because if you draw the shape, you're looking at the outside shape. And then you go to fill everything in, and all of a sudden the shine now is the inside shape, which is much smaller than the outside shape. And you're like, oh, my circle is, shine is too tiny. So draw it bigger than you think, because you can always go back in and kind of cut some of that out and make it tiny. But you definitely cannot go back and get this dark of a shade out of there. So like adding that eye just did so much to make our little chipmunk come to life. Now I want to add in the stump, and again I want to keep the stump relatively a neutral tone. So I'm going to use this base, which is E44, which is clay. So you can tell your Copics are drying out when like the tips are turning a little bit white like that. It means the ink is not flowing all the way to the edge of the sponge anymore. So this one is ready for a refill. And I have this one. Do you guys want to see a refill? Okay, I'll show you. So these are the old refills. The new ones, and I don't have any new ones because once you buy a refill, they last so long. But the new ones are much tinier. I'm kind of sad. They're almost like a barrel of this. So you can see that's about half the size. Same price now. But still, the investment in a Copic is literally buying the first marker. After that, it's not super expensive. Like once you buy the marker and the initial ink to refill, you are set. They say to count your drops. I don't count them. I kind of go with how juicy my tip is. If you fill it too much, the marker will just start kind of spewing liquid. I also, this is the way I test it too, I'll put that flat nib and I'll tip it, and if ink pours out that way, I know it's really too full. And again, oh, see, there it is. Now she's full. She'd be full. Oh, yeah, she's very full. It's not super bad with this one because it's a light color, but you get a dark color and that can be kind of a mess. But there you go. Now you've seen me change a Copic marker. So one thing to watch for is if your Copic marker is super full. Like you can see now how just juicy this is. But every once in a while they'll get an air bubble in here and it will push a huge glob of, see, like right there, see, it's wanting to glob that out. So you just want to watch for that because you don't want that to happen on your picture. So I just find a paper towel or something and I just kind of dab off the excess. I have had many a happy accident because I filled them too full and they kind of blurp. It's kind of like, you know, when a baby gets too much milk and it has to erp up the excess. Okay, that's probably more information than you wanted. Only the best for you guys. Only the best. So my stump is looking a little bit undistinguishable, so I'm going to go in with some super dark color. So I'm going with E87, which is Fig, I believe, and I'm just going to place in some darker tones. And it's going to be harsh and it might ruin the picture, but we will either fix it or learn from it. So, all right, it's a little bit better. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some mixed media. So I'm going to bring in some colored pencils and add some work up here to my Morning Glories and keep working on this stump a little bit. All right, you guys, I think this might be where I call it good. So I have the biggest mess going on here. But we started off with some cute little sketches to get to know our subject. We did a thumbnail, some swatches, which I didn't really use. And then we have our finished piece, which I think matches the aesthetics of this sketchbook really well. Leave a comment down below, a suggestion on what theme I should use for the next sketchbook pages. So is it an animal? If so, what animal? Or is it a person? Yeah, give me some suggestions and I might choose yours. This was our color scheme, which I think is kind of a cool color palette. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me in this video. If you enjoyed your visit to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our next video. So I have a ton of videos in my archives, so if you are new to my channel, you can click on one of those. May I recommend one of these lovely videos for you to choose as you continue your art journey with me. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me, and as always, God bless you guys. Keep drawing, being creative, trying something new, failing at art, because that means you're getting better, and we'll see you in the next art video. Bye-bye!